Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this sixth in our series of 12 webinars brought to you by the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance, which is a composite of the various offices of economic development spanning Northern Virginia. Today we have a great topic. We're at about the middle of our series at this point, and so I will just kick it in and let me just take you through a quick agenda, if I may. As I do with all of these webinars, I'll provide a quick update. I encourage you, we'll be taking Q&A questions throughout the webinar. If you mouse down to the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to see Q&A on the nav bar there. If you have a Mac, I believe you navigate up to the top of your screen to find the Q&A. Also, we'll be taking a poll, a live poll, that I will launch in just a few minutes. And we would encourage you, there are 7 questions and only 7 rather brief questions to answer those and to provide us your insights, because we're going to then address the poll results when we begin the Q&A session. Then we'll go ahead and have our panel discussion after we launch the poll, and then go ahead and take your questions. So let me go ahead and kick off with a quick update. This is over the last 2 weeks, this update. As you well know, the second round of the Paycheck Protection Program has a remaining balance in the fund of around $100 billion. And I neglected to note last session, because it happened just the day before, not a good excuse, that the rules for changing that into a grant from a loan have been significantly loosened, as you well know at this point. And there still remains a significant balance in the second round of the PPP. Unemployment filings since mid-March, effective today, the 18th, have risen to 45.7 million filings. This is an increase of 3.1 million over the last couple of weeks. As you may know, the $600 per week unemployment supplement will end at the end of July, and that the administration and Congress are currently debating on issues of additional support and incentives going forward. Certainly we know the third bullet here, the U.S. economy in the first quarter shrank significantly and is expected to shrink by the end of this quarter significantly as well. Total coronavirus or COVID cases as of, June 18th. As of the 18th, worldwide are 8.4 million. U.S. cases, a little over 2 million cases, increase of 310,000 over the last 2 weeks. And U.S. deaths have risen to 117,717. The Consumer Confidence Index, I noted this in the last session as well, despite all of that very serious news, the confidence index, as reported by the Conference Board, increased in May by 0.9. So it's the first increase in that 4-month period. We have a great panel today. This session is marketing and business development in a new age. And this is our new age. And we have a great panel of marketing and business development leaders. Allow me to introduce Jake Fabry. Jake has over 20 years of experience of B2B technology marketing management. Jake is an expert in defining and executing marketing strategies to grow sales revenue. As Chief Marketing Officer of Fontiva, and Fontiva is a Salesforce Premier Partner company. Most of you likely know that. And they develop native applications directly on the Salesforce platform. Jake, in his role as CMO, oversees all the marketing strategy and program initiatives of Fontiva. Prior to joining Fontiva, Jake held positions with Advanced Solutions International. It's a software solution company focused on nonprofits, and with Broadpoint, the personalized ERP CRM company. Rebecca Churchill is our other panelist. Rebecca is president of Churchill Communications and Marketing, LLC. Rebecca's firm specializes in C-suite corporate communications, PR, and marketing. Her clients are made up of government contractors, software, IT, environmental industries, and a whole bunch more. Steve Winter is president of Brotman Winter Fried. It's recently a Sage Communications company at this point. Steve brings more than 40 years of industry experience running his own agency, and now is a senior vice president within Sage Communications. Sage Communications, by the way, is a company that delivers online events, in-person events, and other significant marketing moments for corporations. They range from athletic tournaments all the way through to annual conferences. Let me just take a moment. Sorry, I'm going to come out of show mode to initiate that poll. Otherwise, we will not have very many poll results, and that would be sad. So just give me a second, folks. All right. Great. So the poll is launched. So if you just, as we go through these presentations and this discussion, if you just take a moment, answer those 7 questions, that would be great. I'm going to first ask Jake a few questions. I encourage Rebecca, Steve, to please also jump in here. Now, Jake, given your position and your client mix, what has changed most significantly for marketers and BD leaders during the last several months?
Yeah, thank you, John. So what has changed? Wow. The short answer is I think everything has changed, right? I mean, we've got such a drastic and widespread shift in consumer behavior across the board, and that is enough of a challenge for marketers and business development to get in touch with people and to engage with them. But on the other hand, we are also facing the statistics and the specifics of the economic fallout from that, from the pandemic that are going to be coming. So there's going to be more challenges ahead, and already more challenges in that budgets are tightening and people are drawing back on their spending. So everything has changed from a marketing perspective and from a business development perspective, because how we engage with people is going to be different going forward fundamentally.
Now, your company, and I'd like to maybe ask you to give the audience a bit of a primer on CRM, on customer relationship management, because I don't know if everybody fully understands what that is, what the options are out in the marketplace. So I'm going to share my screen again and go to the slide that you provided me. So forgive me for doing this.
So right, so Fontiva actually makes vertical CRM software for associations and member organizations, as well as events management. And but as you said, customer relationship management, businesses use this to manage the interaction with their customers and the engagement. But today, even more than ever, it can't just be a Rolodex. It can't be an electric Rolodex that, sure, anybody in the organization can find the email or the phone number for that client or for that prospect, but that can't be where it ends. It has to be one source of truth that is going to deliver on every touch point you have and create a true customer 360 environment, so that no matter what engagement you're having with your customers, you have one source of truth for that and one place where you can execute upon it. And of course, because we're vertical, I would go without saying that I believe that, CRM has grown up enough that you need something that's fit to your business. Either you need to take the generic and you need to fit it to your business, or you need to get something that is specific to the type of business you're in that helps you execute the way you engage with customers.
It's interesting when I grew up as a marketer, I think, as I noted in a prep call with you folks, and the instinct I have as a marketer is control, because I want people to get the message that I want to deliver. Right. And I want them to behave in a way that I can predict, which is not going to happen necessarily. But when you think of control or the interface, if for traditional marketing, it's a lot of outbound behavior. It's it's a lot of shotgun firing, even though we target as best we can. How does a CRM, and by CRM, it's a complex question, but how does this change that behavior?
Well, I mean, to start with, if it is a true CRM that has a 360-degree view of your engagement with your customer, you're really relinquishing control. And I know that's hard for marketers to grapple with because, we're used to, like you said, being able to send out a promotion and know what our response rate is going to be and what the turnaround time is typically on that promotion. And everything's in a nice, neat little box. But we're, more and more, especially now with COVID and with people dispersed from the workplace, where we're going to be relying on the customer to control the relationship, and they have all the power. They get to respond when they want. They get to engage with you when they want, 24/7. If they're a 2 a.m. person, then that's what they are. You have to be able to well, I mean, you can either engage with them at 2 a.m. the way they want, or they're going to go somewhere else where they can do it, right? So CRM really helps you bring that all together in a single view of your customer and organize it in a way that's going to be familiar to the customer, and it's going to build upon progressively what you know about that customer over time, so you can better serve them more personalized and more relevant content and services.
Right. And I wonder, from a, I think Rebecca, you had a remark, you had this comment when we were on this prep call a few days back about customer intimacy, about connecting with the client rather than transacting with the client. What's your takeaway? The role of whether it's a CRM or just finding ways on the connectivity side with the client?
I mean, now more than ever, we definitely just have to take a look at our clients and what their needs and considerations are. And so if it's a membership group, you've got membership needs. How are we meeting them? How are we reaching out to them? We can't sit back and wait to engage. I mean, above all else, the message has to be first and foremost. It has to be concise. It has to hit the mark. So that notion of, authenticity with meaning, with purpose, with delivery. It's got to be, we've got to put out the buckets for all of the different categories and then leverage that incredibly valuable tool like Fontiva and the CRM that does the work so that we can do more with less, because everyone is really strapped for staff and for money right now.
Yeah, there was a point I'm remembering. I used to work in nonprofits until recently, and one of the last things we were trying to do is figure out, we had a homegrown CRM, and we called it, I'm forgetting, we called it the global back end, and it was inadvertently a CRM. And for the audience's sake, I'll broaden this conversation, but I think it's important to understand a homegrown behavior, in-house one, or buying on a platform, or whatever, however you acquire some sort of intimate knowledge of your client. I was always concerned about the timelines to implement and letting go of my core data and then partnering with somebody else. And Jake, I mean, you must run into that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, especially in these days where our data is in the cloud, right? It's in the ether, and we don't know where it is or how it is. But the thing that I reiterate to people more and more is, the military, the federal government trusts companies like Salesforce, which happens to be a $10 billion a year, probably $13 billion this year company, with their security, and they trust them, and trust is a core value of Salesforce. Then they can too. And what's better, a whole team of people using that billions of dollars in R&D a year to secure your data, or you doing it in the back room with an IT team that is probably great, but are they going to be on the leading edge like a company that's working with most of the Fortune 500s?
Just to segue I want to sort of broaden this chat to bring Steve in here too, because when you think about the impact to marketers, sales folks over the last 4 or 5 months, there is almost no industry more impacted than physical events, physical gatherings. And Steve, your company organizes quite a few of those. Can you tell us what you're going through, what your clients are going through? And you provide a few slides as well. Maybe you want to take folks through that. Is that?
Sure. Well, the first reaction is, woe is me, there goes all our events. That can only last about 5 minutes, because then you've got to do something. Now, some of the events, there's no way around it. It's just not going to happen. Every July, we do opening ceremonies for a girls' softball tournament. I use girls and young women, softball tournament. There is no way in the world that event is going to happen. Of course, we did all the soul searching and all the planning with the organizers. At the end of the day, we tried to push it off, wound up canceling. So there are always going to be some events in this environment that there's just nothing you can do about it. But the way you can actually take advantage of events is by repurposing them and doing something that's a little bit different. Fortunately, and I lead into our first slide.
Sure. Sorry. Yep. I'm going. Hold on a second. All right.
Fortunately, there are a lot of platforms out there that you can use. And I think what we're talking about is what we're seeing on Zoom right now. But in addition to Zoom, you've got all these other products, Crowdcast, StreamYard, Demio, GoToWebinar. These are all, great platforms, each one of which has different features and different benefits. Some of these platforms have unlimited capacity for audience. Some allow you to attach e-commerce to them. Some allow better interaction between guests. So the trick is to pick the right platform that works for you. And these platforms actually are very complementary to what Jake does with Fontiva. As I understand it, Jake and his company actually partners with these guys to deliver content. So it's really kind of incumbent on the organizer or the organizer's agency to come up with the right platform. And the platform is critical because you still need to achieve your objectives, and some of these are a little bit better than others. So doing homework is critical. What I'd like to do is actually give 3 really quick case studies on how Brotman Winter Fried as an agency has had to, and here comes that word that we all use, pivot from running a regular, bricks and mortar in-person event to running a virtual event. Every October, our agency puts on the national race to end women's cancer, which, as you can see, is a typical running race. It's a 5K race, Freedom Plaza, and we do everything from securing the permits to hiring the police to setting up the course to running the event. This year, we have had to pivot our event from a regular run to a virtual race, which is really more of a virtual fundraising awareness program. So instead of bringing people to Freedom Plaza, we have all sorts of online programming using some of the platforms we discussed, but also our website to solicit donations. The next example I have, from time to time, we get hired by a political group called Seeks for Justice, and we typically host rallies. And these rallies, this was from the Lincoln Memorial last year, but these rallies, take the form of marches, speeches, protest events. This year, we have to change that over to a complete virtual program. So as you can see by the arrow here, we're going to have speeches online, which is something that we've never really had to do before. We can support that with social media and public relations outreach. So these are 2 examples of how we've taken existing events. The third example is an event that we're actually doing tomorrow night. We came up with a concept for one of our clients, the Museum of Science Fiction, based in Washington, and it's actually a virtual museum. This is an entity that's looking to build a bricks and mortar museum, but they have science fiction programming. So what we're doing tomorrow night is we've got 3 stars of TV shows. These particular stars are from Star Trek, but the stars that we're getting are from the CW TV show The 100, and these characters are going to appear with a moderator and host a 45-minute session, and we're charging $5 for that, which would be a fundraiser for the museum. So those are 3 examples of how we've had to, here's that word again, pivot from an existing event to a virtual event.
And you have this last slide, which is sort of your sort of bring it all together slide.
Yeah, and this is kind of how we had to react during COVID-19. Normally you go out and you market, you sell your products, and if you've got a luxury good, great. If you've got an everyday commodity, great. We have really had to dial back what we've been able to market and promote because it wasn't relevant to people's lives. Some of those luxury goods, a suitcase that follows you automatically through an airport, great product, not viable now. So, you want to have a product, you want to have a service that really makes sense. If that means, you got to hold back and you can't market certain things right now, realize that because, as Rebecca said, it is all about the customer, the client, and the client has so much more power these days. Show empathy, feel empathy. It's not just a matter of looking that way. You really, in the long run, you want to be a positive person. So, and a positive company. There are so many digital tools out there, as we talked about, that you can use to innovate. Think in terms of the end customer and how you service their needs. Delivery, contactless products, and always keep in mind, again, what the customer wants. Plan now and reimagine what's going to happen in the post-crisis environment. We're almost there now, but none of us knows what's really going to happen. But you have to kind of look at events, even right now, with two hats on. 3, 4, 5 months ago, we were planning regular events. Had we known then what we know now, we would have planned a regular event and a virtual event. Over the last 90 days, that's exactly what we've had to do. So have empathy, think about your customer and your clients, and deliver that message.
I think, and when you think about big trade shows, Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, CES in Vegas, so many others. As a marketer, and I think I'll say this to all the marketers in the audience as well, and the CEOs who write the checks for those marketers, the physical events are a love-hate relationship, right? They require significant financial investment, like massive financial investment in some of the event cases. And now if the alternative are virtual events or other online activities, two things pop into my mind. I'd like to get the reaction from the panel. One, my spending mix is going to change significantly. Two, my expectations of success are going to significantly change. And if you're a sales leader, you used to pressing the flesh at an event or hosting a client for dinner, that's not going to happen. But more importantly, on the virtual event and the fact that physical events, is this not a moment where whole industries might reconsider how they invest in physical events?
Do you want me to take it?
Sure.
Well, we're going to learn a lot about that over the next 3 to 6 months. The world was kind of turned on its ear when South by Southwest and Comic-Con both canceled. That was like a shocking phenomenon. And after the fact, everybody had really no choice but to follow suit. So now, as we appear to be coming out of it, some of these events are experimenting with what are they going to do. The first thing that came to my mind is a show in Berlin called IFA, IFA, and it's like Europe's version of the Consumer Electronics Show. They have made the commitment to have a physical event and attract people, but at the same time, they're limiting public participation. They're limiting certain media participation. So everybody's going to sit back and watch and see what they're going to do. Mobile World Congress is another event that is taking a similar approach. Even CES, the way they're marketing themselves right now is they're saying there will be a CES live in Vegas in January. It will have fewer people and things will change. So to your point, things will most definitely change. We really just don't know yet how much they're going to change and in what ways. But we can pretty much rest assured that whatever comes out on the other side is going to be different, and that could be that new normal coming down the pike.
And I think, Rebecca, this idea of client, being authentic with your brand and reaching and being closer to your client. The fact that we cannot get on airplanes at the moment, and frankly, 6 months hence, we don't know exactly when this crisis will be over. I'm not aware that anybody has an answer to that. And business must go on. So how do you continue to maintain or improve those relationships and not be able to get on the plane and get to the trade show?
I'm actually having a bit of an internet problem. I'm just going to open my door.
Okay. Yes, fresh air helps the internet. That's good. That's a good point.
I have no idea.
If you want, I'll
please.
respond while
Thanks,
Rebecca is.
For us to figure out ways to get the value that we wanted to deliver to our constituents. The virtual platform, though, does give us some interesting options in terms of quantity and duration of time, though. You create something for a sponsor that's an exhibition, for your event, and it can be up for far longer. People have the time to peruse something more at their leisure. They have multiple opportunities to go back. Maybe there are more takeaways, there are downloadable things. I think there are workarounds. Yes, it's different, but this isn't going to be the only wave of this. We're going to be planning for this going forward for the next year. So we have to factor in that crisis communication strategy where we're looking at how are we going to do this, satisfy our sponsors and our stakeholders, connect with our clients, and still provide quality value and good messaging and marketing.
I agree with Rebecca on this is, it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity for sure. Yes, at first people were like, oh no, what do we do to pivot immediately? And now they're looking at, I know the rest of our sponsored trade shows through the end of the year have been either virtualized or canceled. And so, in the meantime, before we get back to normal, everybody's going to be building this new toolkit of being able to engage virtually and digitally in lieu of in-person events. And in-person events will come back, right? I think people are already clamoring for real interaction with people. But when they do, we'll have a new toolkit that we can extend our impact and extend our reach beyond where we have ever been before, because it will be a hybrid event in person, and the people who can't be on site can take advantage of the virtual event capabilities. And then people who take advantage of the virtual content 3 months from now never could have done that for in-person events, right? So it's an opportunity to pivot and use that as a strategic differentiation and for your own organization, but also just to expand your impact.
Well, so the net of it is, although yes, physical events will come back in your opinion, and that the benefit is, the silver lining here is that perhaps virtual events as a content platform with a long shelf life really has come into fruition. And so that's a complementary service, not a competing one. And that's a good, I mean, we all know virtual events have, suffered, the early stages for more than a decade. So perhaps the moment has arrived. I want to turn to Rebecca. Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to throw one other thing in, and this is going to be really interesting. The challenge is going to be, how can these companies that put on trade shows like South by Southwest, CES, CTA, how are they going to effectively replace that revenue stream? And I don't think we really completely know that, because now everybody's kind of forced into delivering the content without having the benefit of the attendees or the ticket price or whatever it takes to attend. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Well, I could quickly go in a circle and say that on the nonprofit side or any organizer, events represent, if not the number one or two revenue stream often for annual trade shows. And you make a very good point, Steve. Also, if from a content valuation perspective, either for a subscription business, whether it's membership subscription business or publication or research, that content value has to go up, in my view. That you have to put more revenue possibilities around content than perhaps using content much more as PR. And that's where a CRM, not to oversell Fontiva, which I'm sure Fontiva is great, but
Right.
any CRM, a CRM would do a boatload of lift for that. But before, I just want to remind folks, I'm going to start closing that poll shortly. So there's a poll live, 7 questions, 7 short questions. If you joined us a little late, takes probably 30 seconds, 40 seconds to answer the 7-question poll. And Rebecca, I want to come back into the pure marketing, sort of the softer issues about client relationships. And you gave a few slides. May I go ahead and tee those up and put them up? All right. So let me do that. And apologies to everybody who has to suffer through my PowerPoint skills here. All right, Rebecca, please, why don't you take us through some of your thoughts here?
Okay. When COVID first sort of disrupted everything in, my clients wanted to provide and what was going on. It was a lot of strain, and they wanted to create a deliverable to BD clients and also to sort of high-end, sort of their elite group of clients. So they connected with Jesse Itzler, who's an entrepreneur. He's a really excellent, enthusiastic speaker, and he did a but this was first week of August, and he had come up with, referring to the new normal, dealing with life during COVID. So we did this web talk, and there was a value add at the end where he connected everyone with this Build Your Life Resume program that he offers as a subscription service online. So those who attend plus access to the recording after the fact. And it was a really exciting way to sort of leverage this virtual programming opportunity. And we got such great feedback. It was really exciting.
Rebecca, I think we're having some connectivity problems, so I'm going to just go ahead and pivot for a sec. I'm going to use that word and pivot for a sec, and then ask you to sort of make these points further on into the presentation. Apologies, folks. Technology, right? And going live. All right, I'm going to close this poll, so just bear with me a moment. End polling. Share results. I'm learning how to do this along with us all. All right, so of the 7 questions, they've just closed the poll, 2:32 Eastern. These are the 7 questions, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. So folks, I believe you'll be able to see the poll results, hopefully. I'll read them in any case. The first question, what is your primary form of outreach to your clients today? Not surprisingly, the big answer, 47% response was email push, outbound email. Second was face-to-face exchange. That sort of surprises me a bit, which is great but importantly, if you live in a retail B2C world, how else do you meet your clients if you're in a restaurant? And the self-serve CRM, rather underpenetrated as an answer at 4%. That's interesting. There's a stat that online applications for B2B are the highest growing segment in software purchasing as an industry segment currently. Number 2 question, do you currently use a CRM tool? 66%, 2/3 say yes, 1/3 say no, essentially. If you are using a CRM, this is a nutsy-boltsy question I just threw in here. Is it a cloud-based CRM or an in-house CRM or other? So 57% say cloud-based, 36% say other, which must be interesting. It sounds like a homebrew kind of approach to it. Number 4, I'll read, how important have in-person industry events been to your sales and marketing efforts? Extremely important. The top answer is very important, 38%, extremely important, 28%. So clearly the conversation we're having about physical to virtual, and then the complement of virtual once physical comes back online is relevant here. Would you invest in a virtual event? 38% say yes, 40% say maybe. And I think that's just because they're relatively new, and then to know what the ROI would be from a virtual event and understanding what your expectations are. Has your sales productivity been impacted by COVID and the current economic climate? 45% of folks, the big answer was somewhat impacted, which is actually a fascinating, right? Sort of a fascinating response, given where we are economically. Noting, of course, that this was a health crisis, at least initially. So maybe TBD on what's to come. Are your business offerings more or less applicable to the current reality of the pandemic? The big answer is mixed. Some effect to revenue in both directions. since the start of the pandemic. And this is a point, you know, if you're a government contractor, you've got these long contracts, perhaps you haven't had a direct impact. Second most populated answer, less applicable, revenue is suffering since the beginning of the pandemic. Panelists, thoughts on these results? Anything shock you here or you find affirming?
I would say that, I'll jump right in. I'd say that the last question, number 7, was interesting because, and I know Fontiva's own business, we've seen some of the same where some, you know, organizations are a little bit more apprehensive about taking investments right now and taking the plunge to buy new software to help run their organization. But then others are thinking it's the perfect time. And, you know, COVID-19 and the whole shift and pivot to digital tactics really brought digital transformation home for a lot of people who were delaying to do it and, you know, kind of ignoring it or saying, well, we can get to that as an initiative next year. And all of a sudden it's, you know, the most important thing they have to deal with. So that's interesting that the most people, 53%, said that their business has been mixed, both up and down, you know, some loss, some gain in terms of the pandemic. And I also thought it was interesting that 79% of people said that in-person events were at least important to extremely important, right? So that's a large to their business, and that's interesting. So I think that is more fuel to the fact that in-person events will be back as soon as we can.
Yeah, right. And there's a question here that I'm looking at that might be interesting. Smaller events, dinners, et cetera, will be this audience member posits will be the new normal. How will CEOs need to spend their time and money? Will they add more staff? So if you accept the argument that smaller events and dinners will become more the norm, what's the financial impact of the marketing mix? And is that something you guys agree with?
Not sure I agree. I think there's going to be a shift in events and tactics. And a simplest example I can give you is that, you know, when Fontiva sponsors a trade show, we have a video wall where we do demos of our software, and our goal is to pack people into our booth, right? Sometimes we have upwards of 100 standing there watching, waiting for the prize drawing. Well, that's obviously not going to be a very great tactic, and it's not going to be something you're going to be clamoring to do when we go back to trade shows. So smaller events certainly, especially as we get back to live events, but in the long run, even the larger events are just going to look and act differently than they have, and our tactics are going to have to change in how we engage with people. Yeah, maybe we will need more staff. Maybe we will need different ways to engage with people in a physical sense on site, and that's going to mean more one-on-one or more small groups as opposed to large. So that makes sense.
And I also think that chief executives will look for other events to impact the people they want most to impact. So when you're in a normal trade show environment, you know, you pretty much have access to a CEO if you go up to their trade show booth. I think now what's going to happen is C-suite executives are going to look to their marketing people to set up the proper types of interactions, either in person or online, that really most take advantage of what benefits these guys can bring to these interactions.
Point.
I don't know whether or not I would think that you're going to need consistent staff for marketing projects, especially with, you know, small organizations. Maybe they're going to go more project-based. If they don't have a marketing department already, they might be looking at hiring an agency to do a project-by-project basis that is going to have the reach of a guild where they would have access to talent in web design as well as maybe some event planning and something in between, so that they can have this very diverse and rich layered event with all the different constituents being cared for, and then that would be the end of it, and then they'll move on to something else. I think there's opportunity for a bunch of smaller organizations to fill those voids as well.
You know, I think about if you're in the B2C world, and you know, whether you're a retail operation or a home services company, lawn maintenance, roofing, whatever it might be, what's the play there for online engagement? I mean, you're not going to mow somebody's lawn from the computer, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But how is that benefited? How is that type of business benefited?
I mean, you might not mow their lawn, but you certainly can reserve a slot from the computer. You can make any requests or special requests through the computer. You can transact fees through the computer, right? You can pretty much do the business. A friend of mine had recently moved, and he said when the cable company came, it was a surreal experience because they ran a wire through the window, handed him a crate of the equipment, and said, "Good luck. We'll be back in 3 months to install it properly. Do what you can in the meantime," right? So, I mean, look, we're going to find ways to get through this and ways to adapt. But, you know, I think the end result is you do as much as you can online to minimize that interaction and the risk of infecting each other in the case that somebody is a carrier or ill. But, you know, you're right. You can't mow the lawn from the computers for sure.
But that cable company missed an opportunity to have a much better interaction with their client with a simple extra step, some sort of document or engagement piece where they could have said, "We're sorry we can't be here personally. We're going to walk you through this user manual on how to do this, and this is how to reach us." And then somebody could call back or email back to make sure that they're satisfied with the initial connection.
Cable companies have never been on the forefront of good customer service. So,
yeah, that is true.
Yeah, absolutely. Rebecca, your audio is sounding better. I'm going to go. We're going to get those. I think you got 2 slides there, and I think the audience would benefit from seeing them. So,
okay, well,
you don't mind,
my apologies on my shoddy audio.
We'll blame the cable company.
Thanks. Okay, that's the theme of the afternoon. So,
so you're taking us from marketing and communications and the point about pivoting.
Yes. So we've got a couple of examples of some sort of very simple, powerful messages. The slide on the image on the right was Jesse Itzler's Build Your Life resume picture. Just this very engaging, very sort of empowering slide image. And then this was on the right. You Are the Secret Sauce was actually an internal engagement campaign for Human Touch. They're a government contractor in Tyson's Corner, and GSD is get stuff done. So encouraging people to really move and take control of their work and feel empowered. You know, we're always, as marketers, we're building things, we're selling things. We have, you know, people have so much to read every day. It's more than they can read or view in the course of a day. So we really do have to find a way to serve our clients by cutting through the noise and really making sure that the message is valuable and as concise as possible. So if you go to the next slide, please, John. We have lots of opportunities in this crisis to make sure that our clients are branded appropriately and that the engagement is all that it could be. You know, authenticity is a great word. It means a lot, but it's more of an emotional meaning. It means nothing in isolation. It just means authentic. It's truthful. But, you know, you might as well throw spaghetti on a wall, you know, if that's all you're doing. It's a good first step in market differentiation. And I think you really have to combine all the different pieces. We have to utilize the media. We can leverage the media in so many ways, and it's as valuable as advertising, except that you don't have to pay for that. We have these physical products that can do a lot for us, like this neck gaiter that's doubles as a PPE, it doubles as a bandana, and it's you know, it's got the Chorus logo all over it, and that's my daughter's lovely face. You know, there are the virtual forums, and with the infinite opportunity to take it down many different avenues, and yeah, you can have very rich sponsorship opportunities. And, you know, for engagement, I just see there's so much we can do. One of my clients is a dairy cooperative, and they've got huge numbers of stakeholders. They've got their farmers who are, you know, producing the milk. They've got their staff, and they also have a packaging plant and private label products. So we were able to do a campaign with them where we engaged with staff articulated the kind of work they were doing and also educated the public as to what our staff was doing. We also were simultaneously telling stories about the farmers and who they were and introducing them as people, making those important individual connections. And then we engaged with local Virginia chefs to take the product and make food out of it. And so we were leveraging the power of video and YouTube to do that. So it was a social media campaign. There was a lot of different signage that we did to help the plant staff, the packaging food industry people feel connected to their farmers and also to the product, so that the serving and feeding people was this common theme. So I've got my T-shirt. I don't know if you can see it.
Here we go. All right. Now, you disappeared but reappeared. We are farmer
owned. So, yeah, this is the problem with the Zoom backdrop. But, yeah, the whole idea of really making as many personal connections as possible, but still telling a story of the importance of the product, the nutrition of the product, and telling that whole story was really exciting. And being able to give that message of how valuable this is to people who are buying it and who are being fed. Yeah, I think marketing still has tremendous value, whether it's COVID-19 or just, any old year.
Right. It's interesting. Often a lot of non-marketers get confused of the difference between marketing and PR. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about, as you just did, talking to the social need or to the impact to citizens, and the benefit, not the service that you're selling, but just sort of having a moment of just a pause. And then engaging with community, those are PR opportunities, right? Because PR people don't want to call from a marketing guy or gal, and ever. So journalists couldn't care less about your product, right? But they care about the impact it may have on society.
Right.
So I think my point being that we're at a moment looking at silver linings where this scenario, certain social issues that are occurring right now in the country, are moments perhaps to connect closer to the society and really go for a more strategic strategic relationship, but a more embedded, in-depth relationship. So I think that's a great point about you just made regarding your farmers of Maryland and Virginia. It's good to see Maryland and Virginia get together on that. Great. So I'm just going to look for any more questions, folks. And to the panelists, if I've missed something, you want to please jump in at any point here.
Well, one of the questions that popped up was, what is the future of bricks and mortar?
Yes, thank you. I saw that.
Yeah, and I don't think stores are ever going to go away. I think it's as much social as it is business. We've already seen a huge paradigm shift from buying online, to buying in stores. All these trade associations put out these studies. So I think what's going to happen is you will get something of a comeback after COVID. I think that at the end of the day, what we've seen happen so far will come back out around the same level. So what am I trying to say here? We saw retail business drop, then we kind of saw it level off. It sought its own level. Stores and malls and and other retail establishments are at a certain level. When COVID hit, that bottomed out more than we ever thought it possibly could. But we've got to think that once this ends, we will be sort of back to normal. And I say sort of because we've already seen some companies go out of business. We're going to see other companies, either go out of business or lose business significantly. But I think there will always be a need for bricks and mortar because, let's face it, people want to go out. People want to go shopping. You want to walk around the mall. You want to walk around the strip center or your neighborhood town center. So, again, what it looks like, we're not really sure, but I'm sure it'll be coming back.
I think, just to add a bit to that, because what you said was great about, we know brick and mortar is coming back. Absolutely. People want human interaction. If you're a business that requires a lot of people per square foot to make your revenue, you need to start thinking now about the opportunities to reinvent and reimagine how you're going to interact with people. If you're a business that can schedule appointments and still keep have a low number of people in the brick and mortar at a time, or still, allow people to feel safe, then you're going to do fine. And maybe you have less pivoting to do. But, I think the experience is going to change. And that, for some, it may change for the worse, right? If they don't think it through. But this is an opportunity to reimagine how we're engaging with customers and how we can provide them more personal and relevant service. And by just necessity, because, we're not going to be able to work with 3 or 4 customers at once if they're trying on clothes or looking at a certain product. So it certainly is an opportunity for brick and mortar. It's challenging, but an opportunity.
I agree. And there's also the liability factor. I mean, businesses have to do things differently in a physical environment. They can't afford not to.
One point, it's a comment and a question. I'm going to read it. It's a good one, actually. And this person says, I agree that I think the future does represent a mixed approach to conducting business. I think evaluating the customer journey and guarantee of top value is going to be critical, new world. As an organizational development specialist, however, I think organizations will have to address all of this in strategic operations and human capital planning. Who would like to comment about that? I think that's a really important point about how your staff perceive your company and how therefore they represent you and your services in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thoughts?
Internal engagement is, should be 50% of our marketing. We need to make sure more than ever that people are there. Your staff could be your first line of brand ambassadors. They're out on media, they've got opinions. If they're happy and working hard, they're interacting with clients. You want them to feel that they're a part of that story. And when it works, it's fantastic.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Your brand these days is the last interaction that customer had with you, and that you could satisfy them for 10 years and then do something really wrong, and that's what's going to stick with them. So you take care of your people, they take care of your customers.
Well, you have a BD and marketing audience, not only panelists, but I have to read this next question, looking for opportunity. Do you think there's an opportunity for a service to help businesses become COVID-19 compliant? Health services, restructuring physical locations, keeping anxiety at a minimum?
We've already seen the cleaning companies have a certified logo you can put on the door now. So
is that right?
It's happening. Like this is ServPro, or I forget the actual company, certified clean or certified and disinfected.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if there's a product in play that can help people deal with COVID, I see that Bruce posed that question. There's an absolute market for that, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, taking advantage of a. That sounds wrong, taking advantage of a situation, but it's really more a matter of being able to provide a vital and valuable service during an unfortunate situation. So, you've got a product that will help people, with cleanliness or with, pick any other topic. But if you've got a product that really helps people deal with it, yes, that's exactly what the industry needs right now.
Somebody had commented, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I think it's important to mention, it's important to not be trite as marketers, right? Yes. And Steve, you honestly revealed an important point when you said take advantage. You didn't mean, not you, but you make a point. And you get all these relatively sappy commercials, and you get the same music, and now more than ever, and da 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 da. How do marketers not come off as shallow and trite?
Being disingenuous.
Yes.
And that's a great question. And I think it's all how you package the messaging. Mm-hmm. You almost have to monitor the landscape. If everybody else is coming across that way, change your messaging a little bit. You know, and we've seen a lot of the car commercials. Now more than ever, you need this. I guess it's okay, but I think at the end of the day, as marketers, we want to resonate with our audience. So I think you've got to look at the message you're delivering to your specific target audience, and tell them how you can help them in this environment. It's a tough dance, treading that line between being somewhat condescending, let's say, or being trite, and being really realistic. That's a tough one, but that's what we have to do as marketers.
Yeah, and word choice matters, right? So as opposed to what David just posted, we're in it together, or any of these other trite things, it's how your organization is responding to this. It's not that you're not altruistic, you're out to make money, but we're going to respond appropriately. We're going to make sure that our staff is cared for. We're going to do what needs to be done. And this won't be the last time either. So, it's how do we continue to work through this change in our landscape?
Great. I think on that note, I'm just going to say thank you to the panelists. By the way, for the audience, these are all Virginia people. So, you'll see your contact information. I'll put that with the slide deck that we'll have posted. And let me just go ahead and share a couple of final slides here, if I may. Great. So we're doing these webinars every 2 weeks on behalf of the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance. Next webinar is Thursday the 9th at 2 p.m. Supply Chain Management Beyond COVID. And we'll bring into that also more macroeconomic and international trade issues. We'll have a great panel for that as well coming up. You can find this webinar and the earlier set of webinars on novaeda.org. It's under the events tab. And sometimes Zoom is increasingly requiring passwords. You'll see a password directly below the link. So please use that password. You must register. Very few questions there. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to the audience, and look forward to seeing you on the 9th. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.